Good afternoon, everyone. We are now in the 35th day of the shutdown, the longest shutdown on record and the most severe shutdown on record. Something that was totally unnecessary in the first place, obviously, but we're hoping this will be the week when the Democrats come to their senses and decide to reopen the government. Of course, if you look at why we are here in the first place, it's hard to explain. I still don't know exactly what it is they want. We have accommodated a lot of their questions and concerns. They want to have a discussion about health care. We offered that up a long time ago. And, clearly I've talked repeatedly about having a normal appropriations process where we put bills on the floor, open it up to the amendment process, and allow people to have their voices heard in how we fund the government the old-fashioned way. So I'm still at a loss as to what it is exactly they're trying to get out of this. The one thing I do know is as the days roll by, the consequences and pain of the shutdown grow more severe for the American people. And especially if you are a government employee or the family of a government employee who's no longer getting paid, there are more and more stories of people out there who are trying to live paycheck to paycheck. And now you've got the food assistance going away, the SNAP program. You have Head Start and young kids who need to be able to have access to education. That's increasingly at risk. You'll see more and more probably next week with Veterans Day rolling around, Democrats out there posting nice videos and photos with veterans, which most of us probably should and will do. But the better thing they could do is actually support our veterans by opening up the government and allowing these regional offices to get open again, and allow the GI Bill hotline to start functioning and operating again. There are so many ways in which Americans are impacted by this, and certainly our veterans and our troops come to mind immediately. So I'm hopeful again that this is the week in which the Democrats will conclude that this is not a good thing, and while they may believe politically that it's in their best interest, and obviously we've seen lots of statements that suggest that, it's certainly not in the best interest of the American people. The American people are those who are caught up in the political games being played here in the Senate by the Senate Democrats. All it takes is 5 of them. We have a bill sitting at the desk, which we voted on repeatedly. It came over from the House of Representatives, meaning that as soon as the Senate passes it, it goes directly to the President. He will sign it into law, the government will reopen, and all these adverse consequences that are being experienced by people across this country will go away. That's all it takes. 5 more Democrats, 5 Democrat senators with the courage to take on their political base and their leaders and to do what's in the best interest of the American people.
Mr. Leader, walk us through the play call here, the potential play call here, the idea that there might be some sort of an agreement to move the CR to a later date in January, vote Thursday night, Friday night, something like that. And is there a disagreement between the date between the Senate and the House?
Well, I think obviously since we are now into November and the CR, we've lost 5 weeks. So the November 21 deadline no longer makes a lot of sense. So clearly it would have to be extended, and there is a conversation around what that next deadline would be. But the hope and expectation would be that we could get appropriations bills on the floor, get them considered and passed, so that we can fund the government through the normal appropriations process. Nobody wants a year-long continuing resolution, least of all the Defense Department. And the best way to avoid that is to move appropriations bills. The date is still something that's being, being discussed.
And is that because there's an issue in the Senate, or there's disagreement between the Republican leadership in the Senate and the Republican leadership in the House?
It's a function of it's Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate. I mean, obviously, you've got to have the votes to execute on whatever it is we put on the floor. And so, we want to make sure that we do that in a way that enables us to have success. And if we have to change the date, which we will, here in the Senate to send something back to the House, we obviously want something that will pass the House and then be signed into law by the President.
Given all the suffering in the country right now, and given the fact that you've held these press conferences every week and the Speaker has held them daily, why Why is it, do you think, that public opinion is not carrying the day on this issue?
You know, I don't know, and honestly, I've said this before. I really try to avoid making this an issue out of what the polls say or who's winning or losing, because nobody wins. Shutdowns are stupid. I've been here long enough to have been through a few of them. Nobody wins. And so, you know, I think obviously the American people ought to hold us all accountable. But clearly, in this case, it is the Democrats, and they are actually coming out and owning it in their public statements, suggesting that we want to keep the shutdown going, or it gets better every day for us, or we need this for leverage. Those are all statements being made by Democrat senators and House members. And I think that's the prism through which they're viewing this. And I think that's just the wrong way to look at this. The right way to look at this is, as you pointed out, the impact that it's having on the American people and the pain that it's inflicting on literally millions of Americans. That's what I think this is about. And honestly, nobody wins. Let's just, they need to vote. Let's open up the government and get back to work.
Tucker Carlson had a pretty friendly interview with Nick Fuentes, an avowed Hitler, Stalin apologist. You know, this is a pattern of behavior for Carlson, who's you know, expressed pretty sympathetic views toward controversial figures like Vladimir Putin, for example. Do you believe that Tucker Carlson's views and that his voice belong in the conservative movement?
Well, there are lots of voices obviously out there, and but I don't think there ought to be any. There just should be no room at all whatsoever for anti-Semitism or other forms of discrimination. And that's certainly not what our party is about. Our party is a party that welcomes all comers. And we want to stand up for and on behalf of the American people who work hard every day to make a living, and just want a government that works for them, hopefully at the lowest possible cost, and in a way that enables them to go about their lives and provide for them and their families. Thanks.
But no, I'll talk to you. What do you just offer? What date?
Because the show that covers the censor, the big rental.
January? What would you like?
What y'all doing here?
Well, are you now the minority leader? Was there an election?
Whereas there seems to be a little bit of a gap between the two leaders speaking, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to come share a statement, not related to the CR, by the way, in case that's what you're wondering or hoping. I want to thank Angela for being with me and my wife. And I want to begin by saying I love California. California is our home. Love California, the people of California. Love the California's beautiful natural resources. Love the creativity that comes out of California. Love the spirit of innovation. I love California's drive. And this year especially, I've appreciated Californians' resilience. We've been on the front lines of Donald Trump's cruel policies, beginning with his mass deportation agenda. Not the dangerous, violent criminals that he likes to talk about so much, but we know that so many Latino families and immigrant communities have been terrorized by this administration, where a lot of these individuals and families actually deserve respect and dignity and have earned a pathway to legal status. And I'm proud of so many people throughout the state that have stood up, have spoken up, and have rallied in defense of fundamental rights. California has also been disproportionately impacted by Trump's tariffs, his failed tariff war, and his funding cuts. California is, after all, the number one importing state of any state in the nation, and the number 2 exporting state of any state in the nation. California is proud to lead us into the clean energy economy. And California is home to the best public university system in the world, and we will always work hard to keep it that way. And I've tried to do my part in fighting against these attacks, both here in Washington and back home in California. These are not normal times. We deserve better than this. Now, over the past 2 months, I've received an outpouring of encouragement and offers of support for the idea of me running for governor of the state of California. I've heard from colleagues in public service. I've heard from business leaders and labor leaders. I've heard from civic and community leaders from throughout the state of California. I've heard from people who have approached me at the grocery store, at church, at local parks. And I've been truly honored and humbled by their encouragement. And I've taken it to heart, along with a couple of other messages that I've heard consistently throughout the year. The first that I've heard repeatedly since January. Countless Californians have urged me to do everything I could to protect California and the American dream from a vindictive president who seems hell-bent on raising costs for working families, rolling back environmental protections, cutting access to health care, jeopardizing reproductive rights, and more. Undermining voting rights and civil rights. The other big message I've heard consistently started back in June, when I had the audacity to try to ask a question at a now infamous press conference led by the Secretary of Homeland Security. Y'all recall that event. As alarming as that experience was, not just for me and our family, but for most people who have seen the video, countless people have told me, I'm glad you're fighting for us. I'm glad you're there. And so it is with a full heart and even more commitment than ever, that I am choosing to not run for a governor of California next year. I choose not just to stay in the Senate, I choose to stay in this fight because the Constitution is worth fighting for. Our fundamental rights are worth fighting for. Our core values are worth fighting for. The American dream is worth fighting for. And so with love and support of my wife Angela and our entire family and so many Californians, I will continue to do just that. And I just want to take a moment to not just thank my family and close friends, but my entire staff, all my supporters, and the voters of California who sent me here to do this job. I will continue to thank them and honor their support by continuing to work together for a better future. Thank you.
Was an effort to clear the field for Vice President Harris in any way? Was that part of this
I'm not going to take
calculus
any
at all?
questions. I'll thank you all for listening.
So you came up here and talked to us that you should at least take some questions, please, Senator.